Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. And in this video I want to share with you in detail some of the things that are happening to me personally that I have not been completely revealing to the public because it's just too unbelievable for my 3D mind to understand. And even though some of the things I'm going to tell you are going to sound quite unbelievable, I am now becoming more comfortable with these things as being true. The main thing that's happening here is that my 3D identity is being erased. That sounds more frightening than it actually is, but it's because I'm coming to understand, which I also believe is true for you if you're listening, is that my 3D ego is nothing more than an avatar that my higher dimensional self uses in this 3D earth realm in order to experiment, learn, and grow. But I'm here to tell you that who you are in your 3D earth self may not be anything like who you are outside of this realm. And what I want to share with you is the idea that I want you to imagine yourself if you're playing an online role-playing game, where you're playing in real time with other people, and it's a game and you have your avatar that you're playing, and you're playing with other people, and those people are also actual humans, but they have this avatar that they use in the online role-playing game. So that's a two-dimensional thing, because when you play a video game, it's in the second dimension, but your human person is in the third dimension. So now imagine in the fifth dimension or even higher, there's a version of you that is playing this virtual reality 3D game, but the person that is behind your avatar may be completely, totally different than what you are in this game. All right, so this is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. We're going to talk about this, and I'm going to share with you some specifics. I don't know how specific I'm going to get. Number one, because I don't know how helpful it is. Maybe it'll be helpful, maybe it won't be, but I do think that it's important to share my experience. Before I get into that, we need to understand what this YouTube channel is. Of course, I am on Rumble, I'm on BitChute, Odyssey, I don't know where else. And this YouTube channel is really the thing that keeps the lights on here. So do me a favor, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, like, thumbs up, comment, all that good stuff. And that way we can keep this channel alive and thriving, and I think more people need to be watching this channel. So also you need to understand that the ideas and concepts that I'm going to be talking about are going to be based on personal experience. I'm not here to talk to you about ideas, not anymore. I'm here to talk to you about personal experience. If I haven't personally experienced it, I'm not interested in talking about it. So my hope is that you will seek to experience these things also. I have no interest in being a teacher or a guru who people just defer to. Oh, guru says this, guru says that. I want you to go, oh, Mahadeva said that when he did this, this happened to him. I want that to happen to me too, so I'm going to do what he did. That's what I want for you. And so that means in order to have that, coming on and listening to me talk is kind of meaningless. It's like you know, you want to become Mr. Olympia, but all you do is go onto YouTube and watch videos about, you know, how to work out and what kind of food to eat, what kind of supplements to take, but you don't actually go to the gym, it's kind of a waste of your time. Coming here and listening to me talk about these experiences and not seeking to achieve for yourself, you don't have to have my experiences or even the level of my experiences, but if you're not seeking to take these actions that I'm taking, these techniques, these tools, this technology that I'm giving to you, if you don't use it and have your own experience, then all it is an idea, and it's little better than watching Gilligan's Island. So if you want to be able to have this kind of experience, you know, I actually find photos, and then I actually take them into my, you know, my editing program, and I try and mix it all together to give an impression. I'm not doing as good as I'd like to, but if you'd like to have this kind of physical experience, then you're going to have to do the things that I'm doing. ThunderWizard.com, scroll around until you get to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Subscribe. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe whenever you want. Courses.thunderwizard.com. All of my teachings, all of my services, all of my courses, certifications, my books. Michael William Denny, you can see my name right there. Put a .com after it. You'll see all my books, including InterDimensional Revolution, which is probably the most important book that I have. Second to that would be Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth. Get those books. And of course, you get access to the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, which is also probably, if I had to pick one book, it would be that one. If you master what's in that book, you'll achieve everything that you need. But for now, let's get back to the subject at hand, which is awakening to your true self in higher dimensions. I'm here to tell you it's a very intense experience. It's not at all how it was presented, at least to me, you know, based on writings and based on, you know, your typical, you know, mystics who talk about awakening to the self and all of that. They make it sound like a very easy, mellow experience. That hasn't been my experience at all. Achieving peace, I have nothing against that, but I think that our definitions of enlightenment have been scaled down for the third dimension, which for the third dimension, up until now, enlightenment pretty much meant just achieving a state of peace and self-awareness, self-acceptance, feeling a connection with others, maybe having a mystical experience and saying, yes, I'm enlightened now. I don't have any problems and everything is beautiful and I love everything and everybody. And that is not my experience of awakening to yourself. I really appreciate the depiction of enlightenment as presented by Odin's sacrifice on the Tree of Life, where he went through a very intense process. He sacrificed himself, little s, to himself, big S. Sacrificed himself to himself. As he put it, I sacrificed myself to myself. Self being big S. So we go back to what I was talking about. Your little self is the avatar. And let's get rid of all of the, you know, self-critical things of, you know, my ego, and you're full of ego, and I have to get rid of my ego. People don't understand ego is incredibly necessary. You know, when you get to higher dimensions, you don't have a smaller ego, you have a much larger one. But so does everybody else. And along with that, you also have a much larger capacity for compassion and for empathy, identification with others. So, it may sound like it's a bad thing, because we still have this idea that somebody who has an ego, who has a big ego, this is bad. But that's actually a misunderstanding of what's happening. The people that present themselves in narcissistic, destructive ways, they present themselves as somebody who has a big ego, but the truth is they have zero ego. They don't have any. They don't have an identity. And they not only do they not have an identity, they don't have any self-worth or any self-love. In fact, they are filled with self-hatred. So they feel tiny, insignificant, unlovable, in fact, worthy of destruction. So the way that they learn how to tolerate that self-state is they create a false identity within themselves, which is very childish, it's very grandiose, it's enormous, it doesn't connect with anybody, it lords over and controls everybody, and that's what they think God is. And that's where God came from. Jehovah, the God of the Christian Bible, the God of the Hebrew Torah, the God of the Quran. This is nothing more than the self-hatred of human beings who create a false fantasy of what they think a big ego is, and that's Jehovah. I was watching, I'm kind of in awe of the disturbing nature of AI videos. When you type in something for artificial intelligence to create a video, the videos that it creates are disturbing. But at the same time, I can't keep my eyes off them. And so somebody was having AI generated graphics for, and I think there's a few of them, for the Genesis story. And watching those disturbing graphics combined with listening to the text of the Genesis story, you find out how incredibly screwed up this Jehovah character is. He can't tolerate the idea of his supposed children, who he keeps in a cage, which he calls the Garden of Eden. And in that, there's all these trees, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you're not allowed to eat of that tree. And so the serpent comes along, and he says, why are you not allowed to eat of the tree of good and evil? I mean, if you have that knowledge, you're going to be like God. I don't understand. What is the problem with that? And Eve eats, and her initial response in this interpretation is that she's filled with shame. She doesn't look at herself and go, oh my God, look at this amazing body that I have. Look at all these things I have this mind. Look at this universe. And no, she's filled with shame. And that is just basic codependence. Codependence is feeling shameful for existing. They cover up their nakedness. Nakedness means their authentic self. They feel they have to cover their authentic self because they're full of shame. Of course, this is a projection. So when you see your true self in higher dimensions, your true self is going to be far more grandiose than you can even begin. And I mean that literally. You cannot even begin to comprehend the magnanimity, I hope I said that right, the magnanimity of your true self in higher dimensions. Because if you even begin to start to see and experience your higher self, your avatar starts to expand beyond its borders. which is self-destruction. You start to come apart at the seams, literally. There's too much going in and you start coming apart at the seams. And so you feel like you're dying, just like Odin on the Tree of Life. He sacrificed himself to himself on the Tree of Life, which is the spinal column, Kundalini. He had a Kundalini awakening. And as a result of that awareness of who he was, the mysteries of the universe were revealed to him. That wasn't enough. It wasn't like he saw the mysteries of the universe and that was the end of it. He then had to have the audacity to take them up. He had to go and grab them and take them. Which means he took responsibility for expanding beyond his avatar self. And this, the text says, screaming, he took them up. Which means he's getting expanded beyond his ability, and it is such a frightening, incredible, painful, whatever experience it is. He's screaming as he's taking it up. Reminds me of, Raiders of the Lost Ark. When they open the Lost Ark and you look at it and your eyeballs, melt out of your head. That's, again, and if you look at that movie, that's supposed to be bad. Because again, the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to represent God, and you're not supposed to look at God. If you look at God, you will, it'll destroy you. That's a projection to keep you trapped in your 3D avatar. Truth is, if you see the essence of whatever you want to call God is, yeah, your 3D avatar is going to explode from the inside out, but then it'll reconstitute much larger than before. So what's happening for me every single day, I find that the best times to do this are in the early evening, usually right around sunset, just after sunset. And the reason for that is that the electromagnetic field of the Earth has shifted in such a way that you can connect to higher dimensional energies. We would have said in the past, the veil between the worlds is thinnest. And it's true, right around sunset. That's when the electromagnetic field is fluctuating. That's why in the morning you can meditate and you can have a very powerful self-empowering experience. But in my experience, sunrise and the first part of the day, if I want to connect interdimensionally, nothing really happens. And that's because the sun is hitting the Earth's atmosphere in such a way that it's creating a powerful electromagnetic shield, because you need that, because the sun, you need that electromagnetic shield. You don't need it at nighttime. So I don't know the physics behind it, but I just know that it's true. So every evening, right around sunset or a little after sunset, and it can be late into the night as well. It's just those times seem to work well for me. I'll go into interdimensional meditation anywhere from 10 minutes to who knows how long. Sometimes 10 minutes is all I can handle. And what it's like, there's this movie going on and, you're pausing the movie, right? When you're doing your 3D avatar, your movie over there is sort of paused. Although a lot of things are going on. That's not really the best way to describe it. But what happens is I'll show up in meditation and my guides, which are deities themselves, will show up, and a lot of times they'll go, "You're here, you're back, come on, we're late for this meeting, we got to go." And I will be taken to some place like this. I'll be taken to some place in the universe or another universe many times, and there will be some really cool looking place like this, and in that center part there will be gathered hundreds, thousands, or millions of higher dimensional beings, and they will be having some kind of a meeting of some kind. And usually if it's me, I'm showing up, I'm the guest of honor. They're like, oh, he's here, he's back, okay, we can get down to it, and then we get into the business of things. So let me give you a progression of how this happened. If you've read my book, I recommend that you read both of them. Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, Interdimensional Revolution. In the beginning, as you know, I had to work a couple of times to crack myself open to be able to actually have an interdimensional experience that got past my 3D filters. And it was very shocking and intense and all of that. And then every day, I want to say for, at least 3 months, every day for 3 months, higher dimensional beings were showing up. And sometimes they'd show up in the afternoon. They definitely show up every single night. Every single night they would show up. If I went into interdimensional meditation, I would get immediate access to them, and they would come physically, beam down into wherever I was. And, at first what was happening was that they were, of course, all kinds of things were going on. I was working through karma. I was talking to my dead parents, working through my karma with them, my dead parents, my dead fiance, past life stuff, adjusting timelines. Like there was one thing that really just blew my mind where this being came and said something to me. I don't even remember what it was, and it's not really important, but said something to me that simultaneously I experienced in this timeline and when I was 7 years old and 18 years old. I had these supernatural experiences both of those times, and this being spoke to me, and I was in all three of those timelines simultaneously having different spiritual experiences, but it was one communication from one being. And then that really baked my noodle, because afterwards I was like, so did those experiences exist before? Were they just created now, or have they always? I mean, it just, you start thinking about how time works and all of that, and that blew me away. And then what was happening is that, I was freaking out, and I was having a very hard time keeping my sanity. Looking back on it, I just simply, wasn't allowing it to be real. I just couldn't, I was trying to figure it out and understand it, and all I had to do was just accept it. And it was, it was struggling against it that caused me all of the damage. So I work very hard not to struggle against it now. It's still sometimes it's challenging, but I've just learned to stay sane. I take everything that they tell me at face value, and then when I'm back in my body, I just don't try and figure it out. If I can't comprehend it, I just leave it alone and I don't try and figure it out. If I can sort of comprehend it, but it's challenging, I just take it at face value, and I just go, just accept it. That's just, the universe is different than what you thought. And that's really, the main thing here is the universe is far different than what you think it is. Because if you knew the nature of the universe, you couldn't play this game. You couldn't stay in your 3D avatar and learn whatever skill it is that you've come here to learn. So let me dispel the myth about karma and reincarnation. Karma is not a punishment. Reincarnation is not a punishment. When you play a video game, I used to use this example years ago, and I was doing it knowing that, I didn't know if this was true or not. I assumed it was true because when I really thought about it, the universe didn't make sense any other way. And I couldn't tolerate the idea of living in an unjust universe. So the only way that I could make the universe just was just to accept what I'm about to tell you now, which is what I've said for years. And it turns out it's 100% true. It's more true than I ever realized. Is that karma is not a punishment and reincarnation is not a punishment. what you perceive as karma, which you mean negative karma, which isn't negative, it's just unpleasant. Unpleasant karma, it forces you into a corner where you have to figure a way out. And what it is that you need that will help you figure a way out is actually a skill. It's an interdimensional skill that gives you an ability in higher dimensions. So this isn't, I haven't gotten to the example I used. I'm using a new one right now. I'm just making it up. So imagine you're playing your 3D video game. You're in the fifth dimension, but you've got your 3D virtual goggles on, and you're playing your 3D video game with your 3D character. And you're choosing, a menu comes up. It says, okay, in order to get to the next level, you have to gain a new skill. Do you want the skill of invisibility, of fireball magic, or whatever it is? You have to pick one of those skills. And whichever skill you pick, okay, I'm going to pick fireball magic, click. Then the game morphs into what you experience as a lifetime. And of course, the only way you're going to learn that skill is by overcoming all of the challenges and the obstacles that come your way. Now, for your virtual reality character, it's life and death. And so you take it very seriously. You lose a guy, you get up, you stomp your feet, you cuss, you scream, and then you press, okay, I have 2 guys left, and you go back in. And then, if you run out of guys, you laugh and you look for more quarters because it's so much fun. But when you're in it, you take it really seriously. And so you learn that skill, and then when you get past that level, then the game opens up. That would be you dying and leaving that one life, and you successfully learned the skill you were going to learn. Now, the difference is that here in the 3D, that skill comes in a very boring, mundane way, which is important because then your ego isn't involved. You have to learn how to handle persecution. You have to learn how to handle physical ailments. You have to learn how to handle rejection. You have to learn how, maybe you're born into some society where you're the lower class, or you're racially excluded, or you're born into some society and you're in the higher class and you're rich, and then you find out how meaningless and empty that is, and you have to overcome that and find, like the Buddha. The Buddha is a great example. He was born a king. He had everything. And it was unsatisfying to him. Not only was it unsatisfying, when he would go down and walk around with the hoi polloi, it would disturb him because there was so much unhappiness. And so he, in order to overcome that emptiness that he got from being born in the highest class on the planet, or at least in his portion of the planet, he had to give up everything. He gave up everything. And it was a struggle to find that, what he called that balance. And that was his superpower. And look what he did. He has had, one of the most powerful impacts on the entire planet. So this is your life, and it's a 3D video game. But the person that's controlling your 3D avatar could be, pick your deity. I don't care which one. Because I got news for you. How shall I say this? There are, and I'm prepared to be wrong about all this. I'm just telling you, this is what I see now. But there are forces in the universe similar to the Titans or the Jotuns, the giants, that are conscious and are all pervading. And then there are deities. Zeus, Odin, Shiva, Kali. From our perspective, these deities are infinite, and they are the ultimate. This is why people who worship Krishna see Krishna as the ultimate. People who worship Shiva see Shiva as the ultimate. Because they are. But unless I'm wrong, those are titles that are given to souls who have overcome the challenges in their video game. We know this from Odin. Odin, if we take the Odin story as, I don't take it literally, but for the moment, let's take it literally. He was a human being. He was a human being that overcame his tiny avatar self. And he did it at a time when it wasn't easy to do. It's very easy to do now. I can tell you from personal experience. The higher dimensional beings are waiting to pass out. Anybody who comes to them, they will give you the ability to achieve awareness of your higher dimensional self. Anybody asking will get it. But way back in Odin's time, it wasn't so easy. You had to really, really, really work at it to be able to overcome that 3D self, your avatar. But he did. And then what ended up happening? He became the king of the gods. Now, that's relevant to me because I've been studying the Indo-European languages and the Indo-European religions. And Odin, Shiva the same. Odin and Shiva didn't exist. The king of the gods was first this being that we would relate to. Where is he? Right here, the masculine source of everything, the pure void, and the feminine source of pure light. These were the original deities because they are the forces behind everything. And if there's anything behind that, who knows? But these are the forces behind everything in all of the dimensions. And then in each dimension, there is a place for deities. And you could be the supreme deity of that dimension. The 9th dimension, the 6th dimension. And it is an office. It's like being given the title of sheriff. It's an office that can be taken away from you, or you can evolve into. And the way to get to those offices is by coming here. I don't know how many other Earth-like planets there are. I imagine there could be an infinite number. I don't know. But they're relatively few in number in comparison to all of the other planets that you can incarnate onto in different dimensions. But if you want to get one of those big seats, if you want to become the next Odin, the next Buddha, the next Shiva, the next Zeus, the next Krishna, if you want to be the next one of those, you can do it. But you're going to have to go and play one of these video games. And you have to play a few different levels. And in those levels, you're going to gain higher dimensional abilities that don't... Here's the part that you're not going to like. Those abilities don't show up here in the 3rd dimension. When you quit the game, you will automatically be, you will see that you've upgraded. You've upgraded to another station, another level. This 3D universe, if we just take this 3D universe, there are infinite numbers of places like this, planets like this, that are filled with these incredible places where you can come, and it's filled with beings And the beings don't have to deal with the lower three-dimensional stuff we have to deal with, like anger, fear, violence, hatred, rejection, isolation, loneliness, all the pain that we go through here. They don't have to deal with any of that. But there's infinite numbers of them. They're more, and if you look in the sky, however many stars you can see, there's far more of those planets just in our universe. And each universe is inside of another universe, which is inside another universe, inside another universe, inside another universe. I read somebody's account of one of their out-of-body experiences, which I think described it extremely well. So try and think about this. It's going to be hard to imagine, but you got to imagine yourself outside of a three-dimensional mindset. But he said that he found himself seated at a table, and that table there was people all around the table. But on top of the table was another table. And on top of that table was another table. And on top of that table was another table, smaller and smaller. And it like went down. And then he looked up and he saw that tables got larger and larger and larger and kept on going. And there was this enormous cyclops that was speaking about the nature of time and was simultaneously communicating and having a conversation with every single person seated not only at his table but all the other tables down below. And then he said that huge cyclops also must have been seated at a table, and above him was an infinite number of tables. So does that make sense? Like, when you put two mirrors together and it just goes on forever? Imagine that. That's the multiverse. The multiverse is unbelievably huge. And it is filled with conscious beings. It is filled to the brim with not just conscious beings, but beautiful conscious beings. Here's the thing. Each time you go lower in a dimension, you have less and less conscious entities. So again, those of you who think that higher dimensional beings are out there and want to trick you and trap you and suck the life out of you, you're projecting, I'll just give you the benefit of the doubt. You're projecting two-dimensional demons onto higher dimensional planes. They don't exist there. Because the lower you go in dimensions, the more isolated it becomes, the less beings there are. And the more, of course, the more negative those beings are, because the dimensions get lower and lower. You go higher and higher, it gets more and more beautiful. But the idea of Dracula can't survive in the sunlight. He can't survive looking at the cross. Those are all symbols of what happens to a lower dimensional being when it is exposed to higher dimensional energy. So when you, as a third dimensional being, to the extent that you are identified with your 3D avatar, which again is not you, it is not you. You are probably nothing like that. Or if you are like your avatar, you are far more humongously expansive and amazing than, whatever you are in this 3D essence. I kind of got lost. So, to give you some more understanding. So, going back to me again, as these ETs, at this point, I'm being visited by ETs. I'm being visited by physical entities who are in higher dimensions, and they're coming into the third dimension, but they're just phase shifted just out of my reality. So I can get telepathic messages from them. I'm getting waves of intense energy from them as they're communicating to me, as I'm in my my conscious mind, it's very intense. There was one time when I can't remember if I asked or what, but I remember looking, this was at night, and I looked and I saw the outline, like it was just kind of coming into existence. And I said, oh, that's enough. It was so freaky to me, I just said, that's enough. I don't need to see anymore. But they were coming to me in a physical form, just phased outside of my 3D ability to see and touch them. Although if they wanted to, they could touch me. I told them not to, so they didn't. They stopped, but they could if they wanted to. And the messages that were coming to me after I cleaned up some karma. I cleaned up some karma with my dead relatives, and then once I had cleaned that up and cleaned up some past life karma with especially my mom, then the messages started changing. And the messages were having to do with my essence in higher dimensions. And so basically coming to me and telling me that I was a deity. And it was just unbelievable. It was just, how could that be true? How could that possibly be true? I'm just this 3D bumbling person like everybody else. I have to wipe my behind. I have physical limitations. And it was very, very challenging. And in order to save my sanity, I just accepted it without understanding it. But I'm here to tell you that I understand it now. If I meet with you in the physical 3D realm, you and I are both limited 3D humans. So I don't want you to think that I think I'm Jesus and I can walk on water. I'm not here to tell you that because I've come to accept that I am a deity, that I have the ability to manifest, fish and loaves and all that other nonsense. That is a nonsensical misinformation campaign designed to keep you trapped. That is what false gurus want you to believe. That's why they want you to bow at their feet and make you think that they're infinite and perfect and all of that, because and that's where the term comes from. If you see Buddha on the side of the road, kill him. Because if you were to see Buddha in the flesh and you're a Buddhist, then you're going to stop. Your physical, personal transformation will stop, because you will just be worshiping what you think is perfection, and you won't be trying to become the Buddha, which is the whole point of Buddhism, is to become the Buddha. And what I'm here to tell you is that we know, Krishna probably wasn't a real person. All the other deities probably weren't real people in 3D. They might have been. They probably weren't. But we know that Buddha was. He was an actual person. He was I forget his name. But he was an actual physical person that walked on this planet over 2,000 years ago. And because of his self-transformation, he became literally one of the avatars of Vishnu. He became a deity. Or we could look at it that he awoke to the deity he already was, as he's playing his virtual reality, six-dimensional game, whatever dimension he was operating from at that time. I use that term very specifically. I said operating from because we are all the way up to the highest. There's an aspect of you in the highest dimension, however high those dimensions go. But we identify with some dimensions more than others. And at the same time, you've got multiple versions of yourself. I've had multiple versions of my higher self interact with me. And it's a very trippy experience to have your higher self, literally your higher self communicate to you. It's a very trippy experience. And I think it's important to understand that I think this is the first time in history that everybody can have this experience. For the first time in human history, humans in the third dimension can become fully conscious of their higher dimensional self, of their deity self. But it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to die to the things that you're attached to in this three-dimensional life. And as Buddha so rightly shared with us, that pain is a result of your attachment to your limited three-dimensional self. It's unlikely that you'll be able to, this is why, again, you want to know why I tell you guys that you need to work the 12 steps, why you need to have a counselor, why you need to have a therapist, why you need to have a teacher, a mentor, because these are ways that you tap into higher dimensional energies. And when you tap into higher dimensional energies, that's the only way you're going to be able to wake up out of your 3D avatar attachment, which was necessary in times past. But those of us that survive this shift, if we physically live through the shift and beyond, we will be the first human beings in the history of planet Earth who wake up to their complete higher self without leaving your three-dimensional body. We will be the first. And unlike in the past, when only those, those spiritual monks who went off into the Himalayas like Babaji, Lao Tzu, whomever, unlike the time when only, the 0.0000000.0% one of the population could achieve that, and everybody else had to die and then reincarnate and then die and reincarnate. That is over. You can now ask to awaken, but you will have to die to your third dimensional self while your physical body stays alive. And that is going to be, it's going to be very interesting. So what's happening to me now is I've moved away from having, at least my experience of it, is I'm no longer experiencing just physical extraterrestrial beings, beaming down into my house or my room and then, telepathically sending me messages and energy and doing that. For 3 months, they were showing up every night and they were energetically doing something to me. All kinds of different, they're still doing all kinds of things, but it's happening on a different level now. But what was happening is one time I literally woke up and my left foot was up in the air and twisted and, like somebody was like, working on something. It wasn't painful. I wasn't in pain. I woke up and I was this energy. I look and my foot's up in the air and so, like somebody's, working on me. And as I've said, they've done some kind of energetic thing where they've hooked me up to my right side of my brain and my right ear. And I think that's why now I can get downloads 24/7 without them having to, fly over and beam down and I've got some connection energetically going on that I can get downloads 24/7. But now what is happening is that they're not coming and beaming down into my room, almost never, at least my experience is. Almost never. But what is happening now is that when I go into interdimensional meditation, which originally was about connecting with light beings and having light beings come and physically connect with me energetically and communicate with me and give me messages. Now what's happened is that I can immediately close my eyes and I'm in another dimension. Let me be clear, it's not a visual thing for me. My brain can create some visualizations, some of this cool stuff. physical brain can sort of create that for me if I really put energy into it. But what's really happening is happening on an energetic level. And it is something that I physically feel. When a being, in this case, much of the time it's deities. I'm just talking directly to deities. Very, very powerful deities. It's just the energy that's hitting my body and going into my body is something I've never felt before my entire life. And so for the first few months, I was just he's no longer my guide. The guy who was showing up, he was a mantis being, and he was my guide for a good 6 months. I could be wrong about that, but he was the guy that showed up every day and communicated with me. And his big thing was that he was just pounding away at me, saying, you have to believe what I'm telling you about who you are. You have to believe me. It's very important for not only your evolution, but the evolution of the planet. You must believe what I'm telling you. And he would tell me these unbelievably just grandiose things about who I am in the spirit world and all of that, and higher dimensions and where I've come from, and the karma that brought me to take on the role that apparently I'm taking on in higher dimensions. Bear in mind, again, I'm just a human being like everybody else. So I don't think I can, as of yet, I'm not walking through walls and walking on water. I still have to live like everybody else. I have a lot more physical health. My body seems to be doing better. Emotionally and psychologically, I'm much happier. I'm much more tolerant and patient, and I have a lot more empathy, and that's continuing to increase. So on those levels, as a human being, I'm improving, but other than that, I'm still a human being. But now, when I go into these interdimensional meditations, it's no longer them trying to convince me, because that's what it was for I don't know how long, just trying to convince me of who I was. Now what's happening is when I show up, I've got Thoth, who's my secretary, and I call him and he shows up, and then I'll say, what do we have on the docket for today? And there will be beings will show up into my office. I won't tell you what my office looks like, but I've got a little office that I have, and I sit in my chair and I say, who's coming? Who do we have to work with today? Or what appointments do we have? And so many different beings from so many different realms show up, and they either have a message for me, and now they're starting to request things from me. They want my help in their reality. Apparently, I have powers that they need, so I will give them energy or give them power, or whatever it is that I do. And a lot of them show up and they have things to give me, and they will put different kinds of energies into my energy body, which will morph me and change me, and the energy is unbelievable, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's not stopping. I've just scratched the surface of whatever the heck this is. So I hope you can accept the concept that you are far, far more than you've ever imagined yourself to be. And I hope that you'll be willing to do the work. I teach you on the channel all kinds of free practices. Those of you, again, I've been teaching the kind of Qigong that I taught, which is a combination of the energy practices I was taught by my Maoshan teachers. And then I have downloaded some, and I have synthesized new stuff. And of course, that's all that I know. So for me, it's just energy work. But every single person that has, mastered Tai Chi or mastered Qigong or whatever, when they do these practices, every single time they come back to me and they say, I've never felt anything like this in my life. This is the most powerful energy I've ever experienced. And I offer these to you so that you'll use them. Now you have a reason why. Because for the first time in history, your third dimensional avatar now has the ability to be reprogrammed and upgraded into deity status. So that you can be a 3D avatar walking around in 3D Earth with the remembrance of your higher dimensional deity status. And so you have to have the ability to expand into that. Because if you can't let go of your attachments, you won't be able to expand into your higher, I was going to say density, but you won't be able to expand into your higher identity. So if you're having trouble with this, it's because you're attached, and you're attached to a program. You think that you're not good enough. You think that you're not, nobody loves you. You can't do this. You can't, whatever it is that all of those limitations, your parents, your first girlfriend hurt you, whatever it is, you got a mental illness. I don't care. Alcoholic, drug addict, whatever it is, whatever your limitations are, that's like code written into your avatar program, and you're attached to it. It doesn't exist. It's not real. In order for you to move beyond that, you have to expand into your higher dimensional self, which means you have to let go of your attachments to all of the pain. Again, listen to me. I'm not telling you that you have to get rid of your feelings. Stop asking me how to get rid of your feelings. That's not what I'm saying. Your attachments. Your feelings are reactions. Your thoughts are reactions. Stop trying to change your thoughts and your feelings. Change your intentions. Being attached to something is something that you do every single day. It's become a habit. It's been burned into the neurons of your brain. So if you don't do anything, the easiest thing to do in life is not do anything, and you'll just immediately fall into those old behavior patterns and those old reactions, and they'll just keep going, on that hamster wheel. So you have to make a conscious intention. You have to make a conscious intention to change what you indulge in. You wake up with a feeling of hating yourself. You wake up feeling, this happens to me a lot. Wake up feeling like you don't belong, nobody loves you, you're not good enough, you can't accomplish anything. That's something I've lived with, off and on my whole life. But I learned, by working the 12 steps, I learned to do something called act as if. So if I woke up and I felt like a really horrible person, and the first thing I wanted to do was to, grab, alcohol or drugs or something like that, or anger. I used to really get off on being angry. Shaved my head into a mohawk and go and see how many people I could intimidate. I got off on that. But I did that because I was reacting and attaching to that program, which was telling me, you're no good, nobody loves you, blah, blah, blah. So one of the first things I learned in 12-step recovery is to act as if. So I asked myself, well, what would a happy, successful person do? And then I'd come up with things like they would smile at the teller at the grocery store. They would say thank you. They would say yes, sir. And I didn't want to do any of those things, but I did it, even though I didn't feel it. I acted as though I was a kind, caring, unconditionally loving, mature person. And I wasn't doing it to get anything. I wasn't, like a narcissist will pretend to be that in order to manipulate you so they can get something from you. I wasn't doing it. I was just doing it because I wanted to stay alive. So acting as if is a conscious decision to act completely differently. And the other one is taking contrary action. Taking action that is completely contrary to all of your attachment instincts, your feelings. If you take actions, destructive actions based on your feelings, then you're just simply letting that program run you. But if you take actions that are painful and frightening to you, that are completely opposite from your feelings, because you know that's what you need to do, that is what starts to detach you from your 3D avatar. Now, you can get, you can get some cheat codes in this game. And the cheat codes in this game are very simple. It's doing CE5. Start with that. You don't know what it is? Go search for CE5 protocols. That's the first step to breaking through the dimensional barrier. And by doing that, you can consciously reach out and ask higher dimensional beings who are physical extraterrestrial beings who live in higher dimensions, who live in that universe I talked to you about. They live in this amazing universe where there's multiple, just everywhere they go, there's all of these planets filled with these higher dimensional beings full of love and light, and they just live in that huge, wonderful place, and they want to share that with you. So you reach out and you ask for their help, and they will, to the extent that you are willing and able, they will give you energy. They will give you higher dimensional energy. And that will begin to shift you. And then if you want to take it to higher levels, continue to do the 90-day challenge and do the interdimensional meditations, which is just, my version of, CE5. I don't care about seeing spaceships in the sky. I want to connect with them. But now I don't do it. You can try this, and I think it's a good place to start, is to ask them to come to you, to do your interdimensional meditations and ask them to physically come into your presence, to give you healing, to give you knowledge, to give you energy, to give you awareness, and they'll do whatever they're going to do based on your higher dimensional, true self and your avatar. They already know what you need. And then, maybe you'll end up going, everybody's different. Everybody's got a different path. So my path isn't yours. But eventually, maybe you'll have the path where you can, go into interdimensional meditation and be in other dimensions and, work with deities directly. So far, the latest is working with these guys. The mother, the light of all the suns, and Tarhunt, the father of all gods, the source of all lightning, the void from which all power comes. And the mother of the gods is the light from which, I got nothing against that. Everybody's different. Those of you who follow Vedic astrology, I have moon in my first house. So it means I physically feel the connection. And if you know Vedic astrology, in my D9, I've got Ketu and moon in my 8th house in Scorpio. So as I'm getting older, that's starting to come through. But the fact is that my birth chart, my mind is in my physical body. So when I meditate, my physical body becomes a conduit for the energy. It might be different for you. You might have a mental experience, a visual experience. You might have some other kind of experience. But I don't think it's uncommon to feel their energy. So I know that when I'm having real experience when I get a telepathic message, and along with that message comes this intense energy. I can't think my way out of that. I can't deny that that just happened. For you, it might be orbs will appear as you're getting a message. It might be something else. So anyway, things are changing and continuing to change, and each time I go into meditation, I'm told more and more about my office in the higher realm, and now I'm starting to I've got these two lives. I've got my 3D life, which I guess I'm grateful that I have a lot of time to be alone and think and meditate. And then I've got this other life in the higher dimensions where I'm a much more powerful being than the one that's talking to you right now. And I'm sharing this with you so that you can open yourself up to that possibility. You're much more powerful in higher dimensions than you are in the third dimension. And you can have access and begin to awaken to the higher self that you are, the deity that you are. And if you're like me, what will happen is your 3D reality will start to disintegrate. And that was bothering me for a little while, and now I've just come to accept that that makes sense because we're shifting into the 5D, so it makes sense. I believe that I will continue to be a teacher in 5D, and so I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to need some help. They're going to be confused, and there's going to be a lot of healing and knowledge that they're going to need. So I get to share with them a little bit of what I've been going through, and then they can go through it when they're ready. So it makes sense that my 3D reality is crumbling, and that myself, my identity, is beginning to expand into something much bigger than can fit into 3D. And so I opened this pathway to you as well. You can have this experience as well, if you're willing to do the work. That's what all the energy practices are. That's what the interdimensional meditation is. So, by the way, again, I'm going to know if you're doing the work. If you leave a comment, I'm going to know immediately if you're doing the work. That's okay if you're not. But why not just go ahead and do the work? Stop making excuses. All right, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. If you have a question, please write the word question in all caps, just the word question, and then write your question. If you have a feeling, write the word feeling, and then share your feeling. All right, let's see who we got here. Boneman 538, comment. When did I ask for comments? So Boneman 538, two most important things in life is to pay attention and put effort. I've never said write the word comment in all caps, never once. Let's see what else. Boneman 538, question. When I consider the seriousness I feel in the 3D, then experience the joy and fruitfulness of something bigger, laugh at myself, how do I go deeper to grow? I already told you. Do the work. You're not, Boneman 538, you're not subscribed to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. If you were, you wouldn't ask that question. Are you doing the guided interdimensional meditations, the free stuff on the channel? Are you doing any of the energy work? I tell you every single time how to grow. Do the work. Agent of the universe, honest feeling. When you mention the titles in higher dimensions can be taken away, it scares and makes me feel insecure. I understand that feeling. So now you know what to let go of. Your attachment is working, is doing the opposite for you. Your attachment to wanting to be those things. I know you well enough to know that, what I'm saying is how it's affecting you. So you're attached to all that. And I'm here to tell you the thing that you're attached to is the wrong understanding. Remember what I said before is that the narcissist when they create the false identity, which we perceive as somebody having a big ego, they're creating a false identity of a childish idea of somebody who is all powerful and has all control, and they imagine themselves controlling, manipulating, intimidating, and they believe that controlling other people's actions is what gives them power. That's a narcissist. That comes from a child. That comes from a damaged infant who is trying to imagine in a very immature way what a powerful, lovable person does. And the opposite is true. So somebody who's truly powerful doesn't want the power. They don't need it, they don't want it. And so the idea that somebody can take power away from you is not coming from your higher self, it's coming from your lower, so for you, where you could go is you could go that path of the Buddha, which is give up all attachment to material power. Make that your goal, that I'm going to seek to be free of power in this world. And then, ironically, if you really mean it, that's when you'll get it. But then you won't want it. Bone Man 538 question, is perfection something someone is? Again, it's really good to pay attention to what I talk about. I've never, in this video, I haven't said anything about anybody achieving perfection or being perfect. So why are you asking me about something I'm not teaching? Again, pay attention and put effort. You're not paying attention. I understand you have a lot of questions, but I can tell from your question you're not doing the work. You're not learning from me. The people who learn from me are the people who do what I do. I can tell from your question you're not doing the work. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is perfection something someone is, or is it something someone does or attains? That question is meaningless. Perfection is not something that is anything even on my radar. There's no such thing. No such thing as perfection. That's a two-dimensional idea. There's no such thing as final enlightenment. I've always known this, but now I know more than ever, there's no such thing as a final attainment of enlightenment. It doesn't exist. No matter how evolved you are, there's another level above that. Never stops. And it's a good thing. It's in a very, it would be so boring. The idea of heaven, sitting on a cloud, playing a harp, singing hymns to God forever. How boring. Shoot me now. So again, I've never said anything about perfection. And why are you asking me about stuff I don't teach? And you say all of the striving or Buddha comparison, you said, well, what is the whole, again, I don't think you were listening. Buddha isn't striving. What did Buddha accomplish? Not striving. The whole point of Buddhism is to not strive, is to let go. What you're projecting, this is your projection. You've turned Buddha into something perfect. And Buddha's never been anything perfect. There's nothing perfect about Buddhism. That's your projection. So, Bone Man 538, again, this is how I know you're not doing the work. You're full of striving within yourself. You're full of anxiety, fear, insecurity. That's okay, it's a human thing. But you're projecting onto me these values that I've never taught. So I can't teach you about something not only that I've never taught, but that I have no interest in. Learn how to be where you are. Be comfortable with who you are. Do the work. Do something. Find a teacher. Get a discipline, a daily meditative discipline. Find a Buddha. You're talking about Buddha? Go find a Buddhist teacher and say, I want to be your student, and learn their practice. You need that. Let's see, what else? Nope. There's no other, Scully the Hypno Skull, I'm going to respond to your comment, but it's because you keep repeating yourself. So when people keep repeating themselves, it means that they're insecure about it. And last time at the end, you said something about, I didn't ask you, but you said something about why you're not subscribed to the Warrior 90 Day. And you said, you said, I need to learn the basics. If you're doing the Awakening the Immortals, you're already way past the basics. So I'm going to call bullshit on that excuse. Now, if you want to own your choice and you want to say, I'm choosing not to subscribe and I'm choosing not to get a teacher and I'm choosing not to do that, then I can't say anything because you're not trying to justify your choices based on your insecurities. But you're lying to me and to yourself when you want to present yourself as somebody who's like, oh, I'm choosing to do this now, I'll do the other stuff later. Like, either do it or don't do it. You don't have to, you're not going to gain my approval by justifying where you're at. But if you say, I'm choosing to do this because this is what I want to do for whatever reason, I don't want to pay for it, I just want to do the free stuff and that's my choice, I can't say anything. And you will be honest and you will be true. So I've told you before, I'm going to write it down. You know what these letters stand for. You need that. I would go do that ASAP. You need to get out of your head and you need to get out of your insecurity. And you're not going to be able to do that alone. I can tell by the way that you write that you only do Qigong by yourself from videos on YouTube, including mine. You need a teacher. You need to get out of yourself. So I'm responding because you keep voluntarily throwing out these justifications, and I can tell it's because you feel insecure and you're trying to prove to yourself and to prove to me. Bear in mind, nobody knows that you exist until you write something on here. So if you really wanted to stay, secret and have not anybody see you, don't keep writing on here. So I'm responding to that. I'm letting you know. You're much better off doing what I just wrote, the 2 letters that I just wrote, and finding a teacher. Get out of yourself. Vincent.thunderwizard.com, honest feeling, I strongly desire self-transformation and overcoming limitations and attachments like Odin, and I'm having a lot of feelings come up as I'm letting them go. I'm feeling sadness and grief. I understand. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions here. Okay, I think that's it for me, guys, at least for today. And if more than likely tomorrow I'll be a different person than I am today. Today I'm a different person than I was yesterday. Tomorrow I'll probably be a different person than I am today. And I look forward to other people doing the interdimensional meditation. Probably the most difficult and challenging of all the stuff that I teach is probably, and the easiest, by the way, it's the easiest one to do, doing the interdimensional meditation. If you have fear surrounding interdimensional meditation, the easiest way to work through the fear is to gain energetic power so that your nervous system and your meridians and your chakras can expand to handle the higher dimensional energy, which we are all headed towards. There's no way around that. And so do the free practices. If for whatever reason you don't want to pay anything, I've made it available so that you can do that. Go to Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong, subscribe there. By the way, I've made it easier. People had to kind of scroll through and look for the right videos, but I've now gone in and put on, whatever. I've done some things so that now you can find it. So when you subscribe to the Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong, you're going to see a little box a bunch of boxes with different search terms, and one will show up and it'll say Warrior 90 Day, and one will say Lightning Qigong. And if you click on that, you'll see all of the videos in that in one place, so you don't have to go looking for it. And yep, get the books, Interdimensional Revolution, Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, which you can find on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, or at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Is that it? We all done? No other questions? All right, guys, that's it. Again, if I've done or said anything that has hurt your feelings or offended you, bear in mind that I'm willing to tell you the truth, even if it's not something you want to hear. And I'm willing for you to like me or not like me. My goal is to give you the technology because we got a short amount of time left. We're not going to be around in this world forever anymore. We're on a time schedule. And I am willing to push your boundaries. I am willing to push your boundaries, and sometimes I consciously do that. But know that my motive is always to be the most helpful I can possibly be to you. So that's it. Thank you for showing up. I love you all. I wish you all the best. Take good care of yourself. A lot of changes happening this month. Keep your eyes out for all of the UFO stuff that's coming up on mainstream news. They're feeding you some nonsense. And take a look at Dr. Greer's. If you go to his website, Dr. Stephen Greer, you can go look for his website. To you by the mainstream media right now. So check that out. That's all, my friends. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you next time.